All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us and Congressman Roger Williams for a Small Business Resources Town Hall today. Joining him on the panel is Tom Sullivan, Vice President of Small Business Policy at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Laura Huffman, President and CEO of the Austin Chamber of Commerce, and Art Mann, Administrator for the Texas and Hillsboro Economic Development Corporation, will be joining us shortly. In order to ensure a fluid and productive discussion today, we've received some pre-submitted questions that will be asked throughout the call. If you'd like to ask your question during the call, you can submit it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. Please write your name and then your question, and it will be submitted into the queue. If we're unable to get to your question due to time, you can visit the Congressman's website at williams.house.gov or call his Cleburne office at 817-774-2575. And with that, Congressman Williams, would you like to open our discussion with a few words?
I will, Heather. Thank you. And also want to apologize for us being a little late. That's not our style, so we'll pick it up and get going here. But I want to thank all of you for being on today. I want to thank Tom, Tom with the U.S. Chamber, and Laura Huffman from Austin, my buddy down there, doing a great job. And Art Mann will be with us from the Hillsboro Economic Development Corporation will be with us too. And I want all of you to know that your safety and your health is paramount in my mind as I represent you in Congressional District 5. It's a huge honor. I'm proud to have supported relief programs for small business in Congress, like the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury and Disaster Loan Program. And as most of you know, I'm a small business owner myself, 50 years. Main Street business. So I feel like when we talk about this, we all are speaking the same language. And when I speak about Main Street, I think all of you agree Main Street is the heartbeat, as I like to say, of the economy. Half the payroll, half the workforce is small business. And we need to ensure that our small businesses have confidence and certainty for the future. Tom and I were just talking about that. The economy is ready to get going with the lowest interest rates we've had, with cash in the system, the stock market where it is, with the tax rates where they are. We just need as business owners to have some certainty, and we'll talk later, but liability protection will go a long way to do that for small business and all size businesses. And I hope our conversation today provides some insight into the resource and tools still available for your business during this pandemic. So again, I want to thank Tom Sullivan, Laura Huffman, and Art Mann for joining us today. And with that, Heather, I'll turn it over back to you, and we'll get going on some questions.
All right. Thank you, Congressman. And Vice President Sullivan, would you like to share a few words today?
Well, sure. Please call me Tom, but it's great to be with you all this afternoon. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is based in Washington, D.C., and we have about 3 million members. And 96% of that membership have fewer than 100 employees. About 75% of our membership have fewer than 10 employees. So when we represent small business, our membership reflects that part of the population. We not only represent individual businesses, but we are proud partners of 1,600 local and state chambers of commerce across the country. And that's why I'm especially pleased to be joined by Laura Huffman with the Austin Chamber of Commerce here. So we have a lot of thanks to the congressman and to the good folks in the district about the small businesses that are doing such great things to get our economy back on track. We do a poll every month and every quarter about how small businesses are doing, and I'll echo the congressman's comments that things are starting to pick up. In the last survey that we did with our partner MetLife, we found out that over 80%, close to 90% of small businesses are reopened or in the process of reopening. And that's doing a lot to boost the economy, boost the optimism on Main Street. So Heather, thank you for allowing for me to participate this afternoon, and I'm looking forward to some questions.
Absolutely, thank you. And President Huffman, would you like to share a few words with us?
Yes, thank you for having me. It's good to see you, Congressman. And Tom, it's good to see you also virtually. We have been hard at work in this region. The Chamber has led an effort to reopen businesses during COVID. We were asked to do that by our local elected officials, and our primary focus has been how can we prioritize public health and economics at the same time. We launched what has become a very successful campaign. It's the There Is an Us in Austin campaign, which encourages wearing a face mask and socially distancing, not only for each other, but to keep our small businesses open. And so we're very aware that this is particularly tough on those small businesses, and we're doing everything we can to provide resources, to provide information, and to help businesses help each other stay open so that we can make it through this.
All right, thank you. And Administrator Mann, would you like to share a few words with us as well?
Yes, I'm the administrator for the Hillsboro Economic Development Corporation. It's a Type A corporation that's in charge of industrial recruitment and retention. Been in the community of Hillsboro for nearly 39 years, and been with the EDC for the past 6 years in newspaper and radio prior to that. We've had some hits sales tax wise here in the community. I guess it was for March sales, we were down 21%. For April sales, we were down 23%. We bounced back last month with a 3% increase, but we were down 5% yesterday when we got our sales tax report yesterday from the comptroller's office. So the city budget has taken a hit through this thing. Business-wise, we've been very fortunate. On the industrial front, since I took over, we've had four industries move to town, investment of over $100 million. We announced in January, company just closed. Johns Manville is building a plant. They'll break ground August 31st, another 65 jobs. And on the prospect front, we're getting inquiries on a regular basis now where we didn't see that even before COVID. So the governor's office is and getting prospect leads out to EDC people like me. But I guess that's it, and we'll see where the questions go. We'll talk a little bit about small businesses. We've had 10 small businesses open in the downtown area or in the city in the past since January 1st, and 6 of those came during the pandemic. So the entrepreneurial spirit is out there, and there's people out there that are taking the risk to open businesses. We just lost 2 businesses over the period, a vape shop and a sandwich shop. And good to know this week that the sandwich shop is under lease and a new restaurant is coming in there. So we've got a lot of activity going on even with the pandemic. Heather?
All right, thank you very much. And thank you all again for joining us today. Before we begin with Q&A, we'll launch a poll question that will appear on your screen and stay open for the duration. And again, if you'd like to ask a question for any of our panelists today, you can use the Q&A chat box at the bottom of your screen. And our first pre-submitted question is from Corey. Corey asked the Congressman, is Congress going to act on the payroll tax executive order that President Trump signed? My understanding is that it's a deferment and will be owed at some point, and my employees want me to stop withholding it. Can you provide an update and some insight on this?
Well, that's a great question. And I have all along, since I've been in Congress, almost 10 years, talked about the best way to get money to employees and frankly, employers is to cut the payroll tax. And I think the president's right on in what he's trying to do. I am concerned though that it might be, especially for smaller businesses, a little hard to manage. And what I would like to see is to cut the payroll tax in half. Just cut it in half both ways for the employee and the employer. That gets more money in the hands of the employer, more hands in the employee, and you just lower your percentage of withholding, but cut it in half and keep the same program going. So I think we're on the right track. If we do it, I want to make it easier, not harder for business. I still think the best way to do it would be just cut it in half for both employee and employer. So we'll see what's going to happen. When you talk about cutting the payroll tax, if you're not a business person like all of us on this line, and you're more of a politician, it's hard to explain how if people have more money in their pocket, they spend it. Not only the employee, but the employer. I mean, the employer would have money to hire more people, buy more product, carry more inventory, and at the end of the day, pay more tax because it's going to be profit. I think there's a way to get it done, but right now I would just rather see us cut it in half for both the employee and the employer.
All right, thank you. And this next question is for our chamber guests. And they ask, what is the best way to get involved in chamber activities now that a lot of activities have been moved online and many events have been canceled?
Well, I'm happy to jump in and then go to our local partner. So you're right. There's kind of good news, bad news here. The bad news is that we're not able to come together personally and shake folks' hands and exchange business cards. The good news is that through Zoom and through calls like this and other meetings, the ability to interact with our peers at a local level and a national level is at an all-time high. I've traveled more in the last 6 months than I have in the past 16 years because of Zoom. And it's all done from the privacy of my basement. I still miss that personal interaction, but bringing together more and more small businesses through technology is an incredible opportunity. We do have a small business digital platform. It's uschamber.com/CO. Again, that's uschamber.com/CO. And there are tons of events and networking opportunities that we encourage the involvement of any small business that may be interested. Laura?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I think actually chambers are more important now than they've ever been. As people are working from homes, they are looking for information. They're looking for guidance on everything from how do we reopen our business to what kinds of assistance is available to us. We are finding that our webinars are more popular now than ever before. And I think there are, in addition to chambers members having access to information, I think there are some real things that chamber members can do. Part of what we're going to do in our task force, and that's got over 200 businesses in Austin, is to create a marketplace so that we've got members that have expertise in finance or attorneys or strategic planning can make themselves available to our small struggling businesses. And I think that when businesses reach out and help one another, that can be powerful. I also think the messages that we've had in our Central Texas about prioritizing both health and economy, this is not a forced trade-off, have been important. And I would say that it has been helpful to be able to announce the Tesla relocation during this unbelievably odd time in our history, to be able to announce 5,000 new jobs at just the right level in our community has been welcome good news for us.
All right, thank you. And our next question was emailed in from Ed, and Ed asked, small businesses have been drastically impacted by COVID-19. What is your expectation of businesses to survive and maintain staffing levels with limited customer traffic?
Well, let me jump on that, and then maybe our guests might want to chime in. But businesses are having to adapt. There's no question. That's what small business does. We're adapters. We kind of go with the flow and what we need to do, and we're seeing a lot of that. There's still around $130 billion left in the PPP program, and the deadline has passed, and I'd like to see us go back and revisit that and come up with who should get what and whatever, and flush that out in the system. The PPP program worked. People can argue about it all they want. I looked at it as a business interruption policy, and we know that as the chamber knows, not everything was a Ruth Chris program or a Lakers program. 90%, I saw a figure the other day, 90% of the money that went to PPP went to businesses with 60 employees or less. So look, it worked. Let's spend $130 billion. Let's find a way to get it out in our system and begin to build traffic that way. But the entrepreneurship and the adjusting by small business happens, and the government needs to step back, reduce regulations, and let Main Street begin to take the economy back. So maybe Laura, you want to add to that, or Tom? Or
well,
Art?
I'd like to thank you for the Save Our Stages Act. That is a bipartisan piece of legislation. Live music and tourism is a big part of our economy. Those are some of the folks that are suffering the most deeply. And we appreciate you taking a deep look at that and with an eye towards how can we help these businesses for whom business as usual is a ways off. And so I think it is important to recognize that there are different kinds of businesses are struggling differently. And those businesses in the tourism, restaurants and bars are having a different experiences than say a small accounting firm. And we're trying to be mindful of the needs that each of these businesses has. And thanks again, Congressman.
Well, the Save Our Stages Act is like you say, or is bipartisan. We should get this done. This was a group of people that were the first to go out of business or first to shut down, and now they're the last to shut down. And we need that industry back to begin to get our culture and get our normality back. So it's bipartisan, as you said. I think that we ought to be able to get this done, and we're working hard at it. So thank you.
I'd like to just add to the Congressman and Laura's comments by explaining that there is no small business coming through the pandemic that hasn't disrupted itself. Whether it is shifting from making whiskey to making hand sanitizer, from making dresses to making face masks, there's really no small business that hasn't changed. And in addition to the need for additional aid, small businesses need certainty, and they need liability protection that helps with that certainty. Small businesses are going that extra mile to protect their employees and to protect their customers, and they're relying on local and national health advice. When they take those steps, they have to be protected from profiteering trial lawyers and lawsuits.
Right, thank you. And our next question asks, it seems that preventative requirements and safeguarding against COVID-19 change almost daily. How can small businesses meet or exceed required guidelines to keep customers and staff safe?
Well, that's a great question because it does change daily and sometimes hourly. I think there again, small business has shown flexibility. We've got to be flexible. We've got to do what we're asked to do. I mean, I think wearing a mask and social distancing and personal hygiene, probably, you know, we're told to do that. We should do that to begin to slow this virus down, which we're seeing. But I think too, and we're going to probably touch on it several times. I don't think you can put enough emphasis on the fact that the best way to help small business meet requirements, grow, is to have liability protection. I mean, we just have to have this because, you know, if you can start your business or you can be sued out of your business, and we have to take that threat away because without it, we're going to be playing defense a lot. And I think just yesterday when you saw the Pac-12 and the Big Ten and some of the Ivy League not going to play football, I'm sure a lot went into those thought process was the liability issue and so forth. So we've got to fix that. And that should be a bipartisan issue. I don't know why some people on either side are not worried about trial lawyers suing businesses out of business, but we've got to fix that. And, you know, and couple that with, we said earlier, with the lowest tax rates we've seen, lowest interest rates we've seen, there's a great potential for business to get going and show growth in the fourth quarter.
All right, thank you. And our next question is for Administrator Mann. And they ask, what is the Hillsboro Economic Development Corporation working on to make sure businesses can survive the pandemic?
Well, we worked with our industries. We've really been very fortunate in that we had one of our plants, asphalt shingle manufacturing plant, shut down totally for about 6 weeks at the start of the pandemic. They just filled their orders out of their warehouse. They have about a 250,000 square foot warehouse. But after 6 weeks, they came back, and recently they added their third shift. And I've just worked with the plant managers. Some of the companies cut back hours, but two of our companies have just landed large contracts. One is with Dart in Dallas. They're both precast concrete. And the other one I cannot divulge right now, but it's a large development in the Austin area that they'll be doing precast concrete for. So again, we've been very fortunate in not many they've just been cut back in their hours. So
All right, thank
Well,
you.
and, Heather, let me add one other thing to what Art's, they're doing a great job too. Just last week we were there and they are expanding their airport operations in a smaller community to allow for bigger planes and even jets to come into that airport. And we know that, of course, will grow the community around. And the other thing about the Hillsboro area and what Art's doing along with Laura is when you mentioned about the Tesla, I mean, that's a fantastic acquisition. But as all of you know, especially Tom, when you get a plant like Tesla and businesses coming in like Johns Manville, they create tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 suppliers. And those suppliers go all over the state. I know you remember when we brought Toyota in San Antonio, we have suppliers all the way up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area because of that plant. So we got great things happening here. And just between Austin and Hillsboro, Texas, it's just phenomenal what's going on. So we couple that with no personal income tax, lower tax rates, less government, less restrictions, private sector. Great things are happening with us. I just wanted to bring that up at the airport, Art.
Thank you.
I'll add one data point to that Tesla comment, which is that Tesla is going to bring 5,000 jobs to the site here in Austin. But our forecast is that they will produce another 4,000 jobs from secondary locations, relocations, and expansions. So, and then long term, I think that we will see this become an entire cluster of businesses that locates in Central Texas. And I think the benefits and economic benefits will be seen well beyond the region.
Those two projects are going to add a little over 100 jobs to our economy. Just what they need to fill those two contracts at the precast concrete. So, and then Johns Manville is going to have 65. They'll be up. They break ground the 31st. And they'll be up and running by next fall. So.
Right, thank you. And we just had a question submitted that asks, will there be other rounds of funding or an opportunity to extend funding for the PPP and EIDL loan recipients?
Well, that's another great question. We know the PPP program works. And as I said earlier, there's still money in that second tranche, between 100 and 130 billion dollars. We got to find a way to spend that. I mean, August 8th was the end of the date for that, but we need to find a way to spend that, get in the hands of the right people and get people back to work. So I think that you will see another level. And of course, you know, we're right now in debate on a program, but we can't seem to get together. That will happen. But so I would say yes, hopefully it has to come sooner than later, but there is money there. And they're even, you know, there's $2.3 trillion out there we haven't spent yet. So there's money to be spent in the right way. And I think we need to do that. We will do it sooner than later to keep the economy going.
Heather, let me just add one thing, and this is really highlighting the good work that Laura and so many of her peers are involved with, not only in Texas, but all over the country. So we know that small businesses desperately need more cash to get through the pandemic. Something that's been overlooked, however, is what about that infrastructure that supports small business? And many folks consider the local Chamber of Commerce the economic emergency room that small businesses depend on. And they haven't been able to actually access those loan funds. And so part of this new stimulus that the Congressman is working on actually would allow local chambers of commerce to access those loans, the same types of loans that are keeping small businesses afloat. So we're real optimistic that it'll happen, and we're real thankful that the Congressman is joining in that push to make it happen.
Well, and also, Tom, and all the listeners, you know, there's a new program. If you're not familiar with it, the Chamber or can probably help you get through it, or my office can, but it's called the Main Street Lending Program. And it's not forgivable loans, it's grants that have to pay back. But if you qualify for that, if you have fewer than 15,000 employees, which I'm sure most everybody would qualify on this call, and under $5 billion in revenue, and it's done through the SBA. So keep that in mind. If you have questions and think you want to consider the Main Street Lending Program, call my office or one of the chamber offices, and we'll work with you to get you in the loop on that. That's an existing program.
All right, thank you. And this is a question for all of our panelists, but Michael asks, do you think the Paycheck Protection Program was a success?
You guys
I
wanna
did a survey of at least 7 of our plants took advantage of it, and you don't know whether others did. You know, it's kind of a privacy issue. I've talked to several local businesses here in the community that did take advantage of it, and I think it was a huge success for them.
Let me jump in, and I have kind of 2 parts to the answer. So first of all is, you know, small businesses expect Washington, D.C. to be in this continual improvement cycle. So what was good at one point can always be made better as it goes along. I hear terms like lifeline, savior, a life raft when small business owners refer to PPP, and that tells me that it was successful. However, these small businesses still have to convert those loans into grants. And that process just opened up now with the SBA. And so we've got to take those same lessons of keeping it simple and apply it to the outstanding loans so that small businesses can get those loans easily forgiven and turn their attention to rebuilding, rehiring, and succeeding past the pandemic and not having to worry about red tape that can bog down that whole economic growth.
I think the only thing that I will add to that is we did do a survey of the tourism industry, the hospitality sector, which experienced the first, fastest, and deepest job loss. And what we heard back was that 80% of the folks in that sector did apply for those loans, and nearly all of them received the money. So I think that tells you that the program was successful, both in terms of attracting people to it and also making sure people who needed the money got the money. And I would say as future federal funds come through, one of the reasons why we are really working on this marketplace idea is there are small businesses that find those things very hard to navigate. They're focused on keeping the doors open and making sure that they are giving their customers the best service that they can give them under these circumstances. And we think that those folks that have expertise that can lend a hand, that's a great way for businesses to help one another.
Well, and you guys are exactly right. And I'll just add this too, you know, like in District 25, which I represent, 58,000 jobs were saved just in my district. And, you know, the program worked well. Tom was right. Laura was right. The government red tape regulations begin to slow things down. We've got to find a better way for the banks to be able to go ahead and forgive the loans. We're working on that. But I will tell you, I don't know of another country in the world that could have pushed out that much capital that quick to small business owners to keep the economy going. And I think that speaks highly for our economy, for what we are, for our banking system. And bankers were anxious to jump in the program because they could help their customers. They might even be able to create new customers and so forth. So it was a good program. I'm one that worries about the debt, but like I say, we needed to do this. And we're already seeing return on investment on this money. So I think it, like my other panelists, I think it was a good program.
All right. And our next question is for the Congressman from Cody. He asks, since keeping earnings local is the best way to boost our local economies, why should we continue to pay income taxes if Washington can endlessly ask the Federal Reserve to create as much money as they want?
Well, that's a great question. I think that what we need to do, it's pretty simple, is we need to let small business and Main Street the cash flow in America, which we can do. And then we've got to get serious about the debt and our spending. We just cannot continue to print money, as you say. If they'll get, I'm one of the few in Washington that doesn't agree to a debt ceiling, and I'm worried about deficit spending. But if we will treat the federal government like every family treats itself, every state treats itself, for crying out loud, and try to balance a budget, I think we can get to that point. But we've got to let Main Street do the cash flowing of our country. You know, if we were talking in January, February, we'd be talking about more jobs and people. We'd be talking about, Tom, you remember, I think it was what, 1.3 or $4 trillion already had come in cash flow wise, more than ever before, because of our tax cuts. We were spending more. So the spending is the problem. I agree with you. I mean, why should we pay taxes to just go in a dark hole? But if we get serious about spending and let Main Street and business and entrepreneurship take care of cash flow, we can fix all that. And frankly, begin to be what I call net worth in America again. So you all may want to add to that.
Heather, can we just add by saying amen? Is that acceptable?
Absolutely.
Thanks. Amen.
All right. And our next question says, I have heard some folks talk about student loan forgiveness because of the coronavirus. Can you give us some information on what you have heard if loan forgiveness will be coming for borrowers?
Well, you know, the president has done some extending on that and even lowered interest rates to 0% on some student loans. But I'm not sure we'll get total loan forgiveness with student loans. I mean, we are paying with taxpayers' dollars, but I think he's on the right track in deferring some repayments and lowering the rates to 0%. And I think the temporary relief certainly is going to help our students during this crisis. But I don't think the expectation should be that you borrow for a student loan and not pay it back. You know, so we've got to be careful with that. But reduce or slowing down the payment dates are probably a good thing, which he's done, and I support him on that. But you know, we've got to remember a deal's a deal, and I don't borrow money to think you won't pay it back. But right now in this time, I think we're doing the right thing in offering low rates as low as 0 and deferring payments.
All right, thank you. And this next question is for our panelists, which asks, what are you recommending businesses do right now to stay relevant in the community? And do you have any suggestions on best practices once the economy reopens more and business activity resumes to a normal level?
Well, Laura, I'll start. And this may surprise folks because the advice I give to many small business owners now, the same advice that I would have given 9 months ago, but with a little bit more urgency to it than at that point. That is, listen to your customers. I mean, this is where the real disruption is happening, is that small businesses are learning more and more ways where they can provide full service and full products for their customers. I was on the phone with a small business owner the other day that is a local restaurant that attracts all sorts of folks to their outdoor seating that is, you know, socially distanced. And what they realized was that the ingredients that they use as a restaurant actually are in high demand by their customers for cooking at home. And so that what they did was, by listening to their customers, they actually created a small shop as part of that restaurant where they're selling ingredients they have better access to because they're able to buy it at a wholesale level. And they're actually bringing more revenue in simply by listening to their customers. I think the other part of the advice is the networks that exist and the networks that are unique to chambers of commerce, like that Laura runs, are more valuable now than ever before. That peer-to-peer advice and the networking is really, that need is at an all-time high. So the need for folks to be involved with Laura's chamber and other chambers is, I think, no longer a luxury, it's a necessity. Laura, what do you think?
Well, I agree with all of that, Tom. I think that's great advice. I think that now is the time for communities to come together. These small businesses are the backbone of our communities. They're our favorite restaurants, our favorite bars, our favorite music venues. They are our accountants and our attorneys. And so there's real value in communities coming together on this. I do think you make an important point about listening to the customer and the disruption that's happening. And I think we've seen some real creativity. There were some restaurants in Austin near schools talking about using their dining rooms for pods of students. They've got a kitchen right there where they can provide lunches, and they've got capacity in the restaurants where they can safely provide spaces for kids that are not yet back in school full time. And one other thing I think is really important is that now is a great time for us to keep an eye on the innovation that's possible. COVID-19 is certainly shining a light on some of the weaknesses that we have. And I'll give you an example of that. The job creation that we're seeing in our region is going to require technological skills. And I've been very impressed with our Austin Community College and our workforce solutions groups, trying to find ways to get people into training programs so that we build skills for the jobs of the future, because those jobs are here right now. And Tesla's one of those employers. And the extent to which we can take some of these people that are not working in our tourism industry and provide skills training so that they're ready, able to apply for these jobs, I think that's an incredibly important opportunity. That's part of the digital divide. Digital literacy is a big key to closing that divide. So I agree with everything Tom said, and think that the innovation that we can promote during this time is worth talking about and worth promoting.
Our Main Street Director, Chris Moore, and our local executive director at the Chamber, Wendy Ellis, have done an outstanding job. They've been working with other chambers in the county, and we're in Hill County, so they came up with a Facebook page of Raising Hill instead of Raising Hell. So they have urged people to spend $25 each Saturday at a local business to try to promote the local businesses. And they've been working closely with our local businesses to try to keep them afloat and keep the customers coming in.
All right, well, thank you all. And that's all the time we have for today. We want to thank you for participating in this town hall with Congressman Williams and our panelists. Congressman, would you like to share a few words before we close out our time here?
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I certainly want to thank my three dear friends that have agreed to join us today on this program. You know, we're fortunate that we live in the greatest state in America, the greatest country in the world, right here in Texas. And we got so much going for us right now that we just got to, as my friend Drayton McLean says, just keep charging. But good days we're better today than we were when this thing started. And the only thing that's going to get us back, though, is for the small business owners, Main Street operations, to get back to normal so we can be normal. And we're helping that. And I think what Laura's doing with her webinars are fantastic. I was never a webinar guy, but now we can share best practice with a lot of people and bring these people together. And Tom and what his team are doing from a national standpoint, and Art, I mean, I think that Raising Hill is a great program that everybody ought to take advantage of, $25. And so that's the kind of thing that comes out of small business entrepreneurs thinking. The government told none of us what to do. We just did it. And that's what this is all about. So, and then one other thing, and Laura brought it up too, that I think is important, is one reason we get business in Texas is because we have a total workforce. And what I mean by that is, you know, plumbers, welders, carpenters, and this kind of thing. And we got so many jobs out there. We need to be promoting those jobs and the schools that train these experts, because that will really keep businesses staying here and coming here. So we want to be all over that. So I want to again thank all of you for allowing me to serve you in the United States Congress. It's a big deal. This is an important year for all of us. Anytime you need anything, please call my office. We'd be more than glad to visit with you and try to help you through anything that you may need help with. But I would just say thanks again. May God bless all of you. God bless Texas, and God bless America.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And if we're unable to get to your question today, or if you'd like more information, you can visit the Congressman's website at williams.house.gov. Have a wonderful